Scandinavia, Skanda with the Navi, or the Navy, over all of Scandinavia, the White Warrior, of origining the Vikings, and with the Mexicans, that would be, I'd say, Virocha, the same as Virocana being Virocha. It's very prolific, the people of Danu being in Europe geographically. It is the huge river called the Danube. I don't believe in the Aryan invasion. I do believe in out of Bharat, which actually the latest DNA, though I talked about DNA, the latest DNA does prove in even Harvard University. The professor called, I forget his first name, but his end name is Reich. First last name, R-E-I-C-H, professor of Harvard. He won a bet with his professor at Harvard that before the old professor dies, they would prove that DNA says that out of Africa theory is false. He won the bet because of in the European area they found not only older fossils but therefore older DNA. If they're lucky enough to have the DNA not decomposed, like Spain, we've got it down to 400,000 years when it's deep underground and never disturbed. Stonehenge has a very strong evidence that it was from Bharat. It was recently found. A university proved that the origin of the bluestones within Stonehenge came from an older site in Wales, because they found the stump holes fitting exactly. The prismatic holes were still preserved in the bog where these large stones were removed, and then they found the same stones fitting exactly those holes, and they could date it, and it was 3400 BC, which is about 5,000 years ago, exactly between the Dwapara to Kali boundary, which the Brahmans need to do their yagna over that period, therefore in the Stonehenge, to facilitate us. But as for Mexico, or Maya, yeah, of course we have the Maya civilization with the same name. We have Maya Sur Vishvakarma. The Maya side, that correlates both ways. The early civilization in Mexico called the Mixotecs. The king of the Mixotecs, M-I-X-O-T-E-C-S. Was it I'm not sure if it was the Mixotecs or the Zapotecs. Either one of those early civilizations. The king of it said, I want to find our earliest origin. Where did we come from? Look through our earliest records, which they had immense Mayan records all written on fig leaf books, which were burned, mostly destroyed by the invaders. And he found that they came from the Far East. It was pinpointed to Asia. The Vikings or Atalan, or the Aesir from Asia. But both sides of the continents, Lake Van. The Vanniers, there was a battle at Lake Van. A great battle at Lake Van, which I think is Turkey. There is a current Lake Van in Turkey now. It seems to be the battle where Odin took the female prize. She taught him how to bring back. Yeah, for the Mexican side, the missionaries, the missionaries that didn't kill everybody, who were actually writing down things that were interested what the Mayans had to say from their Popol Vuh, their Bible. They said, where did you come from? They said, we came from the 7 Ravines. And the Portuguese or Spanish friar said, I know Ravines, that means ravines, therefore rivers. Said, okay, you came from 7 rivers, you must have came on a boat, that's fine. But Ravines doesn't mean river, it means underground cave system. It's the whole, the Vedic knowledge is that take it as the amount of land in which the civilization was able to conquer, to judge how far they were able to manipulate the world. So the Victorian age got 70% of the world. So I'd say likewise, they're only able to change the minds of 70% of people. The British or the Mughals or the Romans, no one was a Chakravarti, no one was 100%. Like the Vedas was. The Vedic way of passing underground geologically is the spiritual form. What is this word? The subtle body. It translates into the subtle body. You have the subtle mind, the subtle body, rather than the manifestive spirit, the physical side. So if we take the spiritual body form that they passed from India through these ravines, through these holes, these tunnel system, from almost one side of the earth to the other. I'd probably not in a straight line, because it would pass through the core, which is very hot, probably in a quite a semicircular fashion around the perimeter of the earth. But it works both ways, because the Indian side also say that when Acharya said, yes, that is how the Mayans went from India to Mexico. But the Mexicans are also saying that. They came from India to Mexico that way. So both say there is always that karmic way. I mean, the invaders are going to, unfortunately, kill all the men and just keep the subservient women. Unfortunately, there is no evidence of a scientific paper of that. Yes, there is great resemblance between the Russian area and the Vedas. Etymologically, yes, we have Russia land, Russia lam from the Rishis, Rishis who were there. But I think 50 million years ago, around that time, when this, for that etymology, I think, for the Slavic, the old church Slavic has many Vedic terms, has many Sanskrit terms. Yes, just remember that they have to preserve their history in a much greater way because they are further away from Bharat, and so they are a much greater invasion threat. And so their stories are much more convoluted. What exactly do you mean by two different beliefs? If you can see the same between the Vikings and Bharat, why can't it be the one same belief, just under a different name? Yes, you can look at that on your own doorstep between the north and south recensions in India, in Bharat. The Nordics, and there was a threshold at 1500, I don't know, 1500 years ago or 1500 BC. It was certainly, you could see when their stories turned from magic into total mythology. So they used to be a Vedic origin, and then they just got totally Christianized. Unfortunately, they just have some runic letters, and mostly the medieval period, which was heavily Christianized, and so it got very muddled with Storni, I think his name is. There's you who talked about the floating yogis found underground. There's also the Muslim records of finding a great temple in Mathura, which had several meters high of gold and silver statues. They were floating, which can be explained by magnetism, floating levitation, the British technology now with levitating maglev trains.
Magnetism, there is a mention of a Shivlinga. It is located in Gujarat. The name of the temple is Somnath. That was like one of the temples built for Lord Shiva by the moon deity.
Okay.
So it is mentioned that the Shivlinga was actually suspended in some kind of magnetic rotation while sticking two magnets in their like opposite pole, so the Shivlinga can float in between. And I think it was a metallic Shivlinga. But when the Muslims first invaded the temple, they were bamboozled by how the Shivlinga is floating in the air between two magnetic forces. It is long.
Yeah.
That was.
They didn't have that technology. And regarding going underground where it is dangerous, Mexico and China have rivers of mercury protecting whoever they entombed later into these pyramids. It translates all the way down into the medieval period of the whole of Europe with alchemy. It was called amalgam for the Romans to change mercury into gold, being other meaning of changing yourself. Emerald of Thoth, I have my own etymological theory of this. The word emerald itself, from Old French esmeralda, and then Sanskrit smaragda, which is memory. And so you'd want a tablet to put the memory onto. I think Bing Ming has put a sufficient translation, a paper that translates many of these into scripts, and in there it is segments of many Vedas, the Rig Veda, Artha Veda. You're talking about the three faces, right? We see many figures in a meditative pose around the world in relics set in stone. In Mexico, and his yoga pose is actually inverted ankles, which is a very difficult pose. But the common meditative pose is having one half lotus and the other trading leg being in touch with the earth, while the other is spiritual. Brahma on the lotus, by the following of the gunas, every Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu should all be there. Yeah, we have the original Omkara of the Vedas being one Veda, and then splitting into three, and then four. Brahma always consuming the information and churning it up in his mind and helping us through Vasudev. Oh, Portuguese. Yeah, actually before the Portuguese, the caste was used by the Romans, and in both cases it was fine. It was a fine word. It wasn't racist at all. The racist caste system was 1840 by the British. Yeah, from Manusha, you have the Varna system, and you need the Gotra because it is proof that we're not going to have genetic deformities. In the Kashmir texts, you have pre-Kurukshatra. I think you have 6,500 years. About 1,000 years said lost to the sea of time, which is unfortunate. There are preserved books known to Vaishnavas in the 1970s. They toured India and persuaded Brahmins to exhume their books in hiding, to take a photograph, and then hide those Vedas again. Yes, it's possible, and it's also possible for the Vedas to protect themselves and only reveal themselves when they are ready, like from museum vaults. Even now, we see new and great things. Some say the Srimad Bhagavatam will be hidden; it will be lost in the Kali Yuga, but we'd still have the Gaudiya scriptures after that. Sadly, it has to. The Vedas always have to get almost lost, but retrieved by Matsya or Agriva. Even when it is taken by an Adavan version of Agriva, then the good Agriva takes it from him and fights the battle again and again cyclically. Of the 19th Treta, worshipped in Kerala for his fighting skills. I trained in this for 2 weeks every day in the mountains of Kochi, the Gurukal. Well, tapas is the Spanish food. That's from Sanskrit, because the bowls are very small, and so you are austere to eat very small portions of food. In Athens, years of knowledge regarding the olive tree, many interdisciplines, each god and goddess, but the tree is important with many civilizations, Yggdrasil, and then with Vedic it would be the banyan. In Cairo, probably 1% of the people still worshipping the ancient pharaohs, which were over the turn of the Kurukshetra war. For Greece, there are a small percentage that are still worshipping. But remember, temples are only needed for Kali Yuga, so just this side of 5,000 years, there should be temples. In Dwapara Yuga, even with that step, we are 50% spiritual. The Shiva lingas, they could be eternal or practically eternal. They could be eternal. Maybe they don't erode. Muslims, in Mecca, they are worshipping the lingam stone inside.